Alright guys, well since X-Men Days of Future Past is going to be released shortly as of when I'm recording this, I feel like it's only appropriate I talk about all the X-Men movies. Now I did do videos for the original trilogy mixed in with a couple of movies from other trilogies, but looking back I'm not too impressed with that video, so we're doing it here. Hopefully I can do it in an appropriate way this time. So I'm sure you have a good idea of what I'm going to say for the first three, because I behave the way most people do, but here goes. So the original X-Men, I surprisingly found myself liking this movie. I viewed it and I go, why the heck didn't I see this movie before? It's simple, but it's really good because it had great characters, great emotional causes. I got tense in many situations. I feel for people on both sides of this situation. And just, man, that was pretty well done, although people didn't really have an idea of what they were expecting, which is probably one reason they didn't do so well. And I honestly can't really talk about flaws for the movie, because it's been a while since I've seen the movie and read the novelization. I did pick up bits that I didn't like when I was watching and reading it, but it's been too long. I really cannot think of that many problems, except possibly it's simple, and character interactions are kind of annoying how they bicker at each other, but it's to be expected, you know? So, yeah. 4.8, easily. Why 5? I don't know. X-Men 2, it's basically the same as the first one, except it's even better, even more reason to care for the people, feel for people on every side of the arrangement. Great thinking of the storyline and such, and yeah. And I also loved how the supporting characters got a lot of camera time, because like Ice Man, and then the girl that can run through the walls, even though she's not played by Ellen Page in this one, I was kind of impressed at how much camera time they got, and I was also fairly impressed at how much camera time Rogue got in this one, even though out of the original three she matters the least here. You know it's good when you find yourself caring for the supporting characters, even though they barely ever get featured in a movie like this. Again, for dislikes, I did have them when I watched the movie, but I can't recall really any of them now, except for possibly the love triangle, because, well, I've already stated, I'm not really a big fan of love triangles, to be honest. I mean, like, I don't have to get into that one, and you probably don't really want me to either. So, this one, again, I'll give it a 4.8, I think. Now, moving on to X-Men 3. Now, I'm gonna piss a lot of people off here, but I actually didn't mind X-Men 3 too much. No, hold on. Wait for it. I was able to actually pick up every bit of inconsistency that this movie had with the other two, okay? I was noticing errors left and right. I go, but, the tone of this movie, it feels completely different. What, classes of superheroes? When the heck did that happen? Sentinels, oh yeah, for one scene, and where did that come from? Xavier, he's barely featured in this movie. He just decides to quit as leader of the X-Men. We'll later learn it's because of Jean Grey. But why didn't you tell Storm about that? Why didn't you tell her about that? If you knew such a big evil was being released, why didn't you do anything about it beforehand? You know? And why did you even tell Cyclops this? You just let him run off and get killed. And even, why is he even in this movie? I got all of that, okay? Seriously, I did. This one, out of all of them, didn't really have too much characters I now examine, even though what they had, I honestly did enjoy. It did have a negative feel to it, but in this time it was a little more appropriate, so even though I do kind of hate movies that have this kind of tone, in this case I'm a little bit more fine with it, like with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And that end battle scene, now that was a good scene, because when I had seen this movie, I hadn't seen that many movies that have an action scene that lasts more than like 6 or 7 minutes, and even then it always comes down to like 1 or 2 big fights. Here, there was all kinds of fights, because there was the army guys versus the nameless mutants. There was Iceman versus Pyro. There was Wolverine versus everyone in his path, and then Jean at the end. There was Magneto versus everybody trying to, explain to him the wrongs of his ways. And then there was Kitty and a couple of others versus Juggernaut. You know? So, I'm impressed with it. With that aspect of it, at least. Oh yeah, then what's the real deal with Mystique, like, suddenly selling out Magneto and all that? Because, given her interaction with him in the previous movies of this trilogy, and then what I've seen in First Class, it seems uncharacteristic that she would do that. I don't know. It's odd. So, I agree, it's a flawed movie, definitely the worst of the original trilogy, but still, I end up liking it, although this one is definitely just mainly an action movie, but I guess it's just a good action movie, you know? So, I'll do what I think is the right spot for this movie and give it 3, because there aren't that many action or drama movies like this that I can rate higher than 3. If any of them, except for, like, I don't know, Independence Day, get, like, 5 out of 5, I think that's a little bit crazy as of when I'm talking to you guys right now. And since I ended up enjoying it, the amount that I did, it doesn't deserve 1 or 2, so I think 3 is appropriate. Many of you will think that's too high, but hey, there's a crowd of people out there that does like this movie, just like there's a crowd of people out there that like Origins over this movie. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't. And there's the people that don't like X-Men First Class. I like X-Men First Class, and I do think it's better than this. And then there's the people out there who aren't that big of a fan of Wolverine's solo movies, so I'm one of them. You know? So I've kind of already spoiled bits of what I'm going to say later, but what the heck, let's keep it going. X-Men Origins Wolverine. This was actually the first X-Men movie that I saw, so I think I have a tiny bit of a soft spot for it, but after seeing it, having seen the movies that came before it, it's definitely not as fun as it used to be, because obviously this movie has a bunch of continuity errors in it, the way that Stryker behaves, the setup of the places where Wolverine was imprisoned, the ages of a couple of characters, and then also this movie even conflicts even with First Class and such. Now, despite that, I did find myself enjoying it because I thought there were some good special effects. The actors did pretty well in this movie, but I didn't get as tense in as many situations. This movie totally gives you the impression that there's a lot to expect from these characters in the future, but we later learn that it doesn't happen. I'm going to touch on that more later. And a couple of other things that I honestly can't recall because it's been a while since I've seen this movie, so since I ended up rating X-Men 3 stars, I think that's what I'm going to have to rank this one. But I prefer X-Men 3 over this. What can I say? I'd rather have the characters that we had before still well acted, still caring for, rather than this continuity messed with film that does have characters that I care about but not nearly as much, and most of them are either killed off or actually don't play a part in later movies. So X-Men First Class, going into it, I didn't really know what I'd think of it, because I'd heard that most people consider this at the time to be the best of the spin-off movies that were apart from the main trilogy, but I'm looking at it and I go, a young Charles Xavier, a young Magneto, what's his face, James McCovey playing Professor X, I don't think he can do that, but I view the film and I go, whoa, that was almost as good as the other movies, whoa, because, yeah, I care for the characters in here a lot more, And it was real interesting seeing, like, the origin of a couple of these things. I mean, like, it is kind of simple and bits of it can be expected, but still, it felt basically just like the first two and bits of the third one had in it. I enjoy the characters that much, feel for people on both sides of the situation. Got real tense, got every emotion, and wow, I was really impressed. And the tie-ins that they had to real-life circumstances, brilliant. Although there were times where it didn't feel like I was watching a movie that was taking place in 1960, but whatever, I'll ignore that. Come on. Now, it did mess up with the continuity a little more, but I think more people are going to say that this is more definitive, especially since they're bringing this cast back in Days of Future Past, so people are going to trade Origins as the standout. So, I think I'm going to rate this 4.5 out of 5, because yes, there was still a little bit of continuity to it, but also I didn't get as scared for these people, mostly because, well, a few things obviously had to happen, because this was a prequel to movies that we've already seen. I thought there was one other big dislike that I had. Hang on, I had it and I lost it. Oh yeah, I remember now. I don't totally agree with calling this First Class. I honestly think they should have just stuck with X-Men Origins Magneto. I think that would have been better, to be honest. But then the people are going to be complaining about, but then why are you featuring all the other characters? I agree with that, but I don't know, I just think it would have been better that way, because it does feel like it's a lot more about him, to be honest. And finally, we move on to The Wolverine. Now, I was expecting this to be a sequel to Origins, actually, so I was a little bit surprised when I saw iPhones appear in a couple of other situations. Because, like I said earlier, the way Origins ended and felt, it made it seem like that there was a lot more story to be told. And when I was hearing about the development for this movie, I did stop reading because I stopped paying attention to this franchise for a while, because I hadn't seen the original 3 movies. Just, I expected this to be X-Men Origins Wolverine 2, which would tie up a lot more of the loose ends that existed between Origins and the main trilogy, but surprisingly, this movie didn't do that. It took place after X-Men 3 The Last Stand, although I had to have that explained to me because I did kind of forget about the iPhone situation and just how he didn't do that great of a job explaining that to me. And I hated that fact because just I should be able to tell if this takes place before or after the main trilogy, and because it left that story explained, I look back at X-Men Origins and I just go, yeah. And even though the story and setting that they had was fairly good and such, I just found myself feeling depressed while I was watching it, and I can't explain it because, I'll freely admit, guys, this is one heck of a good movie, but I look at it and I go, I don't like it. It's odd, you know. This is, I think, literally the first time I can say this is actually a good movie, but I don't like it. I can't explain it. Seriously. It's my second cousin again. Ugh. Anyway, yeah, I think that sums it up right there, but even though I don't like this movie, I look at it and I go, why am I disliking this movie? This has great fight scenes. It shows Wolverine being attached to a character, something that he hasn't totally shown that much in the other movies. It's good to get a movie that's set outside of the United States. It carries a bit of a different feel than the previous movies had. You can take it on its own right, minus the post-credit scene, and really enjoy it, and it's not a bad movie. But I didn't like it. I'm sorry, I didn't. I have no clue why. So that puts me in one heck of a conflicted spot, because I want to give this film a good score and recommend it to people, but at the same time, I didn't really enjoy myself. What, did I have wrong expectations going in or something? I have no idea. Yeah, it sucks. I don't want to be in this position. I want to like this film. I really do. Stating that I honestly can't give one X-Men movie some good pros from my own standpoint, it just sucks. Well, alright, I'm gonna have to do something that, I think is gonna be a little bit controversial. I'm gonna have to do a way different critique score than with a personal score, so critique score 4.5, yes, I can easily state that it's 4.5, and when I make my Amazon review for this, I'll probably rate it 4, because it doesn't have that many flaws. Every problem that I had from it existed in here. I'm the problem, not the movie. But, personally, 3. I'm sorry, I don't get it. So, now that I've talked about those films, how do I feel about Days of Future Past? Well, I love the fact that they're bringing back all the older characters, and now we can finally get a good X3, even though I don't mind X-Men 3, because even though it's the movie that I like the least out of the movies that involve Xavier, yeah, I've already stated that, and I really hope that a couple of the characters like Storm, Kitty, and a couple of the other people from the First Class universe get a good amount of camera time, because I don't want anyone shafted. I want good, equal treatment from all of them. Now, it's obvious that Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy are going to have interactions in the movie, so will the guy from Shame, I can't remember his real name, and Gandalf, sorry. They have interaction, but I'm really hoping that the scenes go over well. And then the big question is, 2 big questions actually that I have. One, which Mystique is coming back? The younger one or the older one? Because the older one lost her powers, but since Magneto was able to regain them... But whoa, wait. I think that's a little bit different, because, unlike, Rogue and many other people, I think his powers was a lot more mental-wise, so given how old he was and how long he had perfected his use of them, maybe, you know, he is just different. So I'll answer my own question and say that it's actually the new Mystique coming back. Then the other big question is, who seems to die in the trailer, because they hint at that multiple times. And I'm really hoping that somebody does die, because, well, one, I feel like it would be appropriate, given how many people they're bringing into this flick, but also the death scenes that we've had previously, albeit it was really only The Last Stand, they didn't go over so well. When Cyclops died, I just went, who cares? And when Jean died, I go, oh, well, that sucked, but I don't feel sorry for her. I feel sorry for Wolverine, and that's it. Well, not bad. I spent over 18 minutes talking about this. If you go back to the old videos that I made about that, that's about the same amount of time it took me to talk about all those movies. So I've definitely improved, as I was able to talk about several different movies in a shorter amount of time. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.